Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Public Speakers Association Amazing TV Show. I am Jason-Antalek, your host and the owner and CEO of the Public Speakers Association. And today we are talking to Ken-Fleisher, who is a productivity coach that also helps people with procrastination and with stage fright. And that is our subject today, how you can tackle and get rid of your stage fright. So Ken, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate having you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So Ken, get us started with a definition of stage fright. What does that mean, and what does it look like for people?
Okay, sure. That's a great first question. So the one thing I don't like about the term stage fright is the word stage, because that implies that you're up on an actual stage speaking to a large audience of like 500 people, 1,000. But stage fright is not just that. Stage fright can be talking to just 12 people in a conference room, or even a one-on-one conversation. And even more recently, with all of the working from home and social distancing, a lot of people are encountering having to talk into a camera, much like we're doing right now. But they're not familiar with it. So video conferencing, or if you're recording a webinar, you can experience stage fright in any of those situations. And in a technical sense, stage fright is actually classified as a phobia, and it's a subset of a social phobia called glossophobia. And as you know, a phobia is an irrational fear of something, right? So claustrophobia is a fear of closed, tight spaces, closed spaces. And so with glossophobia, it's a fear of speaking in public. So that's essentially what it is. It's an irrational fear of speaking to people in public.
Well, and I would imagine that leads to some other things. Like that's a lot of, you start sweating and your heart starts beating, right? What is that's how you react to a phobia, right?
Yeah. So those are the symptoms that you may encounter, and it's different for everybody. And it could be a raised heart rate. It could be your knees start to go weak, or your hands tremble. Could be that your voice starts to crack when you're trying to speak, or there could be other things that are not quite as physical of a symptom, where you just completely forget what you're going to say. You know your material inside and out, but somehow you just go blank when the moment comes. And those are all direct symptoms of the stage fright, of the phobia.
Well, I definitely have had the experience of kind of blanking out, even if it's not right away, but at some point. Just kind of, ooh, for a second. Now, personally, I still get a little bit of anxiety, but it's kind of an excitement anxiety, right? So I wouldn't say I experience stage fright, because I love speaking. It's like Disneyland to me. It's like the roller coaster. It's exciting and scary and all the things at once. But why do some people get stage fright and others don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before I answer it, I want to touch on one thing you said, which is actually quite interesting. The excitement that you feel, what you're feeling, it's the adrenaline. You're getting some adrenaline, and you might even feel a little bit of anxiety and nervousness before a talk, even as a seasoned professional. That's completely normal, and that is not actually stage fright, because it's not an intense, irrational anxiety, right? So the irrational fear, which produces an intense anxiety, that would be classified as stage fright, something that actually stops you from performing your best or doing your best. So why do some people get that and others don't? Well, like other phobias, it has to do with your past. So there was some event or multiple events in your past when something happened, and it caused you to make an association with the event of speaking in public, which has caused you to want to avoid it. Like, for example, let's say you're in grade school, you had to give a report, you're all excited, you get up in front of the class and you give the report, and you think you did great, but all of a sudden everyone laughs at you, right? That's you may not show it right away, but it's kind of devastating, right? And your brain is starting to make an association now that, oh, speaking in front of people, that's a bad thing. So one thing I didn't mention, or I think maybe I did, it's a social phobia, okay, stage fright. And so the problem here is, as social creatures, as humans are social creatures, we like acceptance. We want to do things that get us accepted into the crowd. So if everyone's laughing at you, this becomes a bad thing and something to avoid and something to fear because you don't want to be left out. So if this happens more than once, or let's say there were some bullies in the class who continue to tease you about it, it doesn't affect you immediately. You don't immediately have stage fright, but there's a seed that's planted. And over time that grows, and at some point it passes a threshold and causes you to have this now irrational fear of speaking in front of people. And that's how it affects you.
Interesting. So there's lots of different ways that it shows up, it sounds like. So how do you deal with those kind of signals? Like if you've got to give a presentation and you know, either it's at the beginning or you're right in the middle of it and it sets in, you know, what do you do about that?
Yeah, exactly. So most of the time it's not going to set in once you're in the middle of a presentation. Once you begin, you typically fall into the pattern and you get more comfortable and more confident with it. It's usually starting or the anticipatory anxiety beforehand, which could be hours or even weeks or longer before the actual event, depending on your situation, right? So what you can do about it is there are definitely some techniques. Since raised heart rate is one of the common symptoms, if that's something that happens to you, you can learn some breathing techniques. You know, there's lots of different types of meditation or deep breathing. In particular, you want to learn to breathe from the diaphragm. And that does two things. One, it helps you project a better voice as you're speaking, so that's a good speaking technique anyhow. But two, breathing from the diaphragm helps to slow your heart rate. So the shallow breathing, which is in the upper chest, that's what will cause the rapid heart rate. And that's what you're doing as you start to feel that anxiety. So if you breathe from the diaphragm, you help to slow that heart rate, and that should help. Another technique is to remember it's not about you, okay? It's about the audience, and it's about what do you want them to take away from your talk. They're there for your information, not for you. And so let the ego go a little bit and focus on your audience. Focus on the material you're delivering to them, and don't think about yourself. So if you were that kid in grade school, it doesn't matter if they're laughing at you, just deliver what you know that you know and focus on that. So you have to get out of your own head, basically. That's that technique. A third thing you can do is what's called self-talk, positive self-talk. So the things you tell yourself help shape the way that your brain is affected or sees your situation. And this is one of the things at the core of stage fright. So if you're constantly thinking that you're afraid of speaking in public, then that's just going to reinforce that. If instead you use positive thinking and you tell yourself over and over, yes, I'm not afraid, I'm confident and I can speak in front of people, just keep telling yourself that, and it will find a way to make itself true. So positive self-talk is one technique you can implement.
Those are really great tips there. I appreciate you sharing that with our audience. And I know for me that one of the things I like to focus on is what am I working on in the connection, right? Which I think falls into focusing on the audience. That definitely is one of the techniques I use, but it's I always came from, how am I connecting? How am I reaching people? Am I making eye contact? That's what really keeps me in that mode. So it's neat that kind of already had that ingrained there somewhere. So I bet people might find when they listen to your tips that they're already incorporating some form of those techniques. So that's really great to expand on.
Yeah,
So
great.
for people that have the perpetual issue, that really have a message they want to get out there, but they just can't shake it, is it possible to completely cure stage fright? Can you just get rid of it?
That's another one of my favorite questions. So if you read a lot of the articles you'll find online and books, and most of the stuff on stage fright will tell you that no, you cannot. That it's always going to be there with you, and they'll give you techniques that you can do, some that are a little similar to what I just gave, but those can work. But the techniques tend to revolve around two things: either managing your symptoms, so finding ways so that when you get your symptoms, you can lower their effects so that they don't actually, interfere with your ability to get up in front of people and speak. The other is to avoid the symptoms in various ways, right? So you look for ways to not trigger the stage fright, which will trigger those symptoms. And all of those things are usually designed around whatever solution the person who wrote it has to offer, which sort of relies on you not actually curing it. But like I said in the beginning, stage fright is a phobia. And just like other phobias, yes, you can cure it. So stage fright can be cured, and it can be cured in the sense where you can make it in such that you never trigger any of it. So the difference between what I just talked about is the other techniques to avoid it require your active participation, ongoing and constant. You have to always be focused on multiple things at the same time. You have to do all these extra techniques, and you have to be conscious of things while you're giving your presentation to help you stay focused on your audience. That's one of those, for example. But there are ways that you can simply eliminate the trigger altogether so that whatever is triggering your stage fright no longer has the effect of causing these symptoms to come out in the first place. And in that way, yes, it can be cured.
Well, that's got to be really healthy news for people that maybe really struggle with the extremes of those kind of triggers and situations. So thank you for clarifying that. If people know that they've got the kind of thing that they really need to work on, and recognize that they need some further assistance, Ken, how do they find you? How do they get to you, the expert at curing stage fright?
Yeah, well, the best way is to find me on Facebook. I'm Ken-Fleisher. That's Fleisher, and I believe my URL, or my Facebook profile name is PTKEN, PTKen. And so find me on Facebook, connect with me on Messenger, and that's really the best way to reach out to me. And yeah.
All right, well, that's great. We'll make sure that that is available to folks here in the video and in the description, so that they can reach out to you personally, Ken. And thank you so much for taking the time today to share your expertise with us here on the Public Speakers Association amazing TV show. And hopefully we'll have you for some additional sharing. I know you're going to take part in the Meet the Experts series for the Public Speakers Association, so folks can look for some more opportunities to connect with you.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and for listening or watching or both. And thank you on behalf of the Public Speakers Association. Keep speaking.